Hello everyone and welcome to this demo of Acadly for hybrid or blended synchronous teaching and learning. My name is Vaibhav and I'll be showing you how you can use Acadly to engage students and automate attendance in the blended synchronous use case today. We do have a couple of other videos focusing on the online use case and the in-person use case. In this video, once again, we'll be taking a look at the blended synchronous use case, where the idea is that some of your students may be attending the class in person, whereas another section of students may be attending the class remotely online. The basic challenge of a hybrid or a blended synchronous class is to be faithful to the policy of equivalence, which basically states that any student who's attending the lecture, whether they're sitting in person or if they're attending remotely, should have the same experience, whether it concerns attendance or discussions or activities like polls and quizzes. It's essential for instructors to make sure that students attending the class in any modality should have a similar, if not the exact same experience. Now, what we're seeing right now on the screen is a student logged into Acadly. At the center is the instructor's video, which is being powered by Acadly's Zoom integration. On the right side, there's a discussion. So in the chat, the student can ask questions. Below the video unit, I see a section for in-class activities. So this is where instructors can share activities like discussions, word clouds, polls, quizzes, files, videos. So there are tons of interactivity options that the instructor can leverage to make the class as interactive as possible. So let's get into how Acadly works for this particular use case. I've also at the same time logged into Acadly on a mobile device over here. So on the right, what you see is a student logged into Acadly using the student iOS app. I'll be showing you how the experience varies depending upon how you're attending the lecture. So let's say that this student who's attending the lecture using their phone is actually sitting in person. So if the student is sitting inside the class, then all they need to do is just leave the video meeting inside Acadly. So I have this leave option right here as a student. If I tap this, then I can just leave the meeting, which basically turns the video off. Now, once the student's video is off, this saves them obviously a lot of bandwidth, a lot of audio-visual issues inside the classroom, but also at the same time, the student can still engage with the activities that the instructor shares. The student can also see the chat. So the chat is right here on a mobile device. So I can just open up the chat and communicate with all the other students. The instructor has a specific way to record attendance for in-person as well as online attendees, and I'll be covering that shortly in the demo. So this is the basic principle that in hybrid classes for students who are using Acadly, it's optional to actually keep the video on. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the features here. The first is attendance. Now, attendance works differently for online and in-person attendees in Acadly. Now, I've switched over to the instructor interface. So this is the instructor. Whenever the instructor wants to record attendance for online attendees, they can just tap this button on their interface that says record attendance. And once they do that, the attendance process has now begun. And any student who's attending online, for example, this student right here, gets a prompt that they need to respond to. Are you still watching? Are you actively listening? And the student simply has to respond to this prompt, and this acts as a measure for attendance. So the student simply goes back to watching the lecture, and the instructor at their end get this feedback that one student is present right now. Now this process would automatically stop in a little while, but you can also stop the attendance process yourself. And whenever you want, you can just reinitiate the attendance process by tapping the record attendance button again. So the instructor can poll the students for their presence multiple times during the lecture. And at the end of the class, they would get to see for every student how many prompts did the student respond to. So this is for the online use case. For in-person teaching and learning, Acadly uses a specific way of recording attendance which relies on proximity detection. In in-person teaching and learning, the idea of attendance, the idea of being present, is that the student should actually physically be present inside the classroom. So in an in-person class, all that the instructor needs to do to record attendance is open the Acadly app on their phone and then tap the start button. So once they start the attendance process, The Acadly app actually tries to discover students in the instructor's proximity using a mesh network technology, at the core of which is Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. All the students inside the classroom get a notification instantly, and Acadly tries to discover all of them who are actually physically present in the class. Now, this process is already over. This would continue for about a couple of minutes and end itself, but you can also end the process manually. Now, as soon as you end the process, students get a confirmation on their screen that they have been marked as present, and that's it. So in case this process fails for any students, you can also manually edit the attendance records. So this was attendance, and as you can see, we've implemented different methods for capturing in-person as well as online attendance. Now I quickly want to cover the activities, which are obviously a key reason why you might want to use Acadly for teaching and learning. So there are several kinds of activities, as I had mentioned. You can create activities on the fly, or you can keep them ready before the lecture begins. Over here I have a quiz, a poll, a discussion, and a learning resource, which can be a file or a video or a link. Let me, for example, share a quiz with the class. Now, as soon as I travel away from the lecture page, the video unit just minimizes to a corner, and as the instructor to share the activity, you can simply publish it and share it with the class. Once the activity goes live, you can track the total submissions right here on your page. Students on the other side, they get to see the activity on their lecture page instantly, and they also get a notification within the app. Once the student opens up an activity, they can at the same time watch the lecture as well as attempt the activity. So let me go ahead and select my responses to this question and submit my response. Now, as soon as I submit, as the student, I can see my score on my side, and the instructor can see the overall results at their end. Now, let me switch over to, once again, the student who's attending this particular lecture in person. So this again is the student using a phone to attend the class in person. They just see the activity, they don't see the video at their end. So I can just open up the quiz, and once I start attempting, I can submit my response as well. Now, once the response is submitted, the student gets to see their score, and the instructor at their end can see the total submissions right here. The instructor can view individual responses by tapping on this button, or they can also view the analytics for each and every single question separately. There are several other kinds of activities. There are polls, for example. Again, there are discussions. Discussions are open-ended, so students can just write their comments over here. Plus, you also have a word cloud feature for the discussions, which just summarizes the big themes that the students are talking about in this right-hand side. So you can just draw up the word cloud. This changes dynamically. So as and when your comments keep coming in, the word cloud will keep changing to reflect the big trends in the discussion overall. And the final thing, of course, is the discussions themselves, the chat and the Q&A. So all the students can access this discussion to write their questions in the same place. So instead of using something like a video conferencing platform, plus a polling or a quizzing app, or maybe an LMS, plus using a separate discussions platform to keep all the chatter or all the back channeling in one place, you can just use Acadly. All the students can use the same platform, whether they're sitting inside the class or remotely, and they can just leave the meeting or join it as and when they need. The final thing is the experience for asynchronous attendees. So let's say if a student couldn't attend the lecture synchronously and they want to come back and watch a recording of the lecture, Acadly handles asynchronous attendees in a very special way. So this is a recorded lecture on Acadly. Not only can the student view the video of the lecture itself, they can also access the entire discussion, plus they can see each and every activity that was shared during the lecture. So in case the student wasn't able to attend in real time, they can always come back, they can still engage with all these activities, they can submit their responses, they can get their scores. So watching a recorded lecture is no longer just a passive experience. They can also get to see all the activities and the discussions as well. Finally, all the data from Acadly is downloadable, so you can export this data to CSV files or to your LMS if your institution is using Acadly Enterprise, which also includes integration with the learning management systems of universities. This is a regular CSV download that's available to all instructors, whether or not their university has an agreement with Acadly. So in these CSV export files, you can get your students' email addresses and their names. along with data about their attendance, for example. So these are the attendance records that I'm looking at. So I can see if a student was present, absent, late, or excused. I can also view the same statistics for quizzes or for polls or for discussions. So all the data inside Acadly is exportable, and it makes the reporting tasks at the end of the semester really very simple. So I hope that was a useful demo, and I hope you want to learn more about Acadly. Head over to www.acadly.com for more information and to set up your account. Thank you so much.